Hi, I'm Sahil Virk and welcome to Strategic Finance with Sahil. Something big is shifting in the global financial order. The recent BRICS meeting in Brazil did not just make headlines, it sparked a wave of conversation around one powerful idea, that is de-dollarization. For over a year, countries across the world have been quietly and not so quietly questioning the dominance of the US dollar. But what's really driving this movement? Is it just political posturing, or are we witnessing the beginning of a new global currency era? In this video, I'll break down the forces pushing de-dollarization forward and my perspective on where the US dollar is headed in the years to come. Let's start by stepping back and looking at the big picture, the global economy and how the US fits into it today. So the first graph that you see shows the foreign exchange reserve by currency for the world. We see a trend that over the years, dollar as a reserve currency is decreasing and other currencies such as Chinese yen are increasing. The change is very small over the years, but over 20 years, dollar has dropped from 70% of the world's reserve currency to less than 60%. Important thing to note that is that the percentage of the Chinese currency is actually higher, as this data is self-reported by 149 countries and not all countries are included in this data. The next graph shows that the dollar index, that is the performance of dollar to a basket of major currencies. We see that dollar is weakening and it is weaker than it has been in years. So what is causing this decline of dollar? In my analysis, there are three major causes of this decline. The first, there is now an alternate trading ecosystem available. Europe and G7 as a percentage of world's GDP is decreasing. BRICS and Asian countries is increasing. The center of the global financial system and trade and commerce is shifting from the West to the East or the global South. We see a large change over the last 30 years. Earlier, countries needed to trade with the US and its allies to grow. Now countries of the global South can trade between themselves and in their own currencies. The global South not only provides low-end goods and services, but as these countries are developing, they also have highly sophisticated alternate technologies that they can offer to the world. For example, India's defense exports have increased from nearly zero to close to $3 billion last year. India is now exporting advanced missiles, air defense, drones, artillery, guns to many countries. Until a few years ago, these countries had to rely on US and Europe for these technologies. Countries such as Philippines, Vietnam and Armenia can now buy advanced weapons from India. They have more options than before to buy weapons, giving these countries a major strategic autonomy to make the best decisions for their countries. The second major problem with dollar is that US is printing money and taking on debt. The US has taken catastrophic levels of debt over the last few years. We see that in the graph, the US debt has reached almost 100% of its GDP last time. Last time it reached this level was during World War II. Any other country that printed even a fraction of this amount would have been bankrupted. The increased loan is forcing the US in paying $909 billion in interest payments. This value is much larger than the complete Indian government budget of $600 billion this year. If you look at the basic economics, if there is more supply than demand, then the value of the goods and services will decrease. We see that with dollar too. There is so much supply that this is causing a decrease in the value of the dollar. Foreign holders of US loan in terms of treasuries has decreased from 47% to 30%, and the US government is taking on more loan from domestic sources. Additionally, foreign reserves of countries in dollar in the US treasuries has decreased. As the dollar as a reserve currency decreases, this decrease will lead to further decrease in the foreign holders of the US loan. This will be very bad for the US as the interest rate on the loan will increase and the cost of imports will also increase for the US as the dollar value or dollar currency decreases. The situation is now more complex as the US is engaged in trade or tariff war with the rest of the world. This will have an effect on the US economy and the consumers as the US consumers will now receive items at a higher price. Third, the US and the Western countries have made strategic mistakes by imposing sanctions on Russia, Iran, and many countries and taking them out of the financial system, that is the SWIFT banking system. This is leading to decrease in the confidence in the Western-led economic system. Countries are now looking to diversify their investments and trade so that they are not beholden to the whims and fancies of these Western countries. Countries now want to have an alternative trading system as much as they can so that if they are sanctioned or removed from the Western financial system, they can still function. We see that India has its own UPI system that is being adopted by many foreign countries. And China also has its own financial payment system. As we see that with the trade war, countries are now looking for alternate commodities markets too. For example, US is the world's largest exporter of food and China is the world's largest importer of food. Due to the trade war, China has shifted its purchase from the US to Brazil, Argentina, and Russia. This is leading to problems in the US as there is a huge decrease in the demand for its food items in the global markets, leading to the decrease in the prices. All this has accelerated the trend of de-dollarization. Now let's look at the future. What can be the impact of de-dollarization and the alternatives to the dollar? First, dollar provides a stable common currency that countries could use for trade across the globe. This facilitated globalization, increased living standards for the people across the globe. But now as the dollar decreases, this will lead to uncertainty in the markets. Many exporter countries will see their incomes decrease as they earn their money in dollar. And the whole global supply chain will be fragmented and broken. As far as the alternates to the dollar are concerned, economists talk about three scenarios. First is a BRICS currency, second a gold-backed currency, and third, countries will have a basket of currencies and gold in their reserves. Dollar will be the largest currency but much less than 50% of the overall mix. This is the scenario that I predict in the short to medium term. Now, why do I say that? You may have heard that people saying that BRICS currency or gold-backed currency will replace dollar, but that is incorrect. Let's understand this by going a little deeper. BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Out of these countries, the economy of China is larger than all the other countries combined. Any BRICS currency will be dominated by China. This will be unacceptable to India. This will be like losing the sovereignty of the country. We have an example. The euro is dominated by Germany and France as they are the largest economies in Europe. The smaller countries have no say in the decision making of the currency. The decision about euro is made in France and Germany. Similarly, a BRICS currency will be dominated by China. Unlike the dollar, which is controlled by the US, India does not have any direct hot conflict with the US. But India had a war with China in the past and continues to have a border dispute with China in the present. In a future conflict with China, BRICS currency will be weaponized by China against India. Even during peacetime, India will be arm twisted to do China's bidding. This is a worse situation for India to be in. Additionally, other countries in the world will also not accept China's replacement to dollar due to many inherent issues with China, such as restrictions in the bond market. Secondly, countries do not trust the Chinese financial system. Third, currency devaluation by China, causing loss of investment value. Fourth, lastly, China has border disputes with many of its neighbors. China has tried to mitigate some of the issues by launching digital yuan, but it is still a long way to go. I believe Chinese currency will grow in the global financial system, but it will not be as big as the dollar. I do not see this happening in the medium to near future. Let's look at the gold-backed currency. Currently, the total foreign reserves of all the countries in the world is close to $12 trillion. The total value of all the gold held by the central bank of the world is 36,000 tons or $4.2 trillion. If gold has to replace other currencies, then the central banks would need to buy trillions of dollars of gold. Gold is not something that is easily available or something that can be easily mined. So that means whatever the gold that we have, its prices will skyrocket many times. This will lead to hyperinflation and collapse of the financial system. It is due to this inherent flaw with the gold-backed currency that we moved away from the gold-backed currency. In the end, I'll say that nobody knows the future, but if you make assessment on the facts and the data available, as the facts and data change in the future, you refine your assessment. In my conclusion, my assessment is that the world is moving away from the dollar and we are moving to a multipolar, multi-currency world order. So please like, share, subscribe this video and follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you and goodbye till my next video on strategic finance with Sahil.